Now for our featured story of the day. Here's the latest from RFK Jr., who is running for president, made some very bold promises if he is elected at the Nashville, Tennessee conference. I'm going to be recapping some of those promises with his executive orders that are very bullish for Bitcoin. Hands down, took the cake as far as the best speech that was delivered over the weekend. And also, he was interviewed exclusively by Cointelegraph. I'm going to be giving you the highlights, and that was right after the speech he gave in Nashville. So many of you have never heard this before. So let's freaking go. So yeah, headline reads, only Bitcoin can guarantee the US dollar's reserve currency status, according to RFK Jr. in this exclusive interview in which I'll be providing the highlights. But before we dive into that exclusive interview, first, I want to give you the highlights in case you missed what he shared on his speech at the event. I shared this over on X. It got a lot of love, 164 hearts, 41 reposts. So thank you, family. But here, RFK Jr. pledges 4 executive orders related to Bitcoin on day 1 as president. Here are his executive orders. Number 1, I will sign an executive order directing the US Treasury to purchase 550 Bitcoin daily until the US has built a reserve of at least 4 million Bitcoin, which is probably roughly 5% of the circulating supply. That would be pretty lit, wouldn't it? Number 2, I will sign an executive order directing the DOJ and the US Marshals to transfer approximately 200,000 Bitcoin held by the US government to the US Treasury, where it will be held as a strategic asset. Lo and behold, 120,000 Bitcoin now on the move from the government. Are they going to dump it so that no candidate can hold and stockpile the Bitcoin if RFK Jr. or Trump got into office? Let me know your thoughts. Number 3, I will also sign an executive order directing the IRS to issue a public guidelines that transactions between Bitcoin and the US dollar are unreportable transactions and by extension, non-taxable. To me, this is one of the most lit announcements and promises at the event. I think every Bitcoiner would like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, family. That's pretty amazing. And number 4, I will also sign an executive order directing the IRS to treat Bitcoin as an eligible asset for a 1031 exchange into real property. Very bullish as well. Very advantageous for us. You know what I mean? Now, that's pretty lit, family. And again, those were the highlights from the speech. And I strongly encourage everyone to watch the speech. It was definitely the highlight of the event based upon what I've seen thus far. But anyways, back to this story. Candidate RFK Jr., also known as RFK, Robert Kennedy Jr., believes policymakers in the U.S. are quickly realizing that Bitcoin is inevitable and are scrambling to develop a coherent digital asset strategy that will preserve America's fiscal dominance. In the exclusive interview with Cointelegraph at the 2024 Bitcoin conference in Nashville, Tennessee, RFK Jr. described his Bitcoin journey in greater detail. Before discussing the role Bitcoin should play in the country's monetary system, the presidential candidate, who dropped his Democratic affiliation last October to run as an independent, which FYI, I respect like a mofo, said he realized the importance of Bitcoin's transactional freedom during the trucker strike in Canada. RFK Jr. called the trucker strike a very peaceful protest where people were exercising freedoms that we take for granted in this country, like freedom of assembly, freedom to petition their government. But the Canadian government portrayed it publicly as kind of a terrorist event. Facts. They began using technologies like facial recognition systems to identify people who are participating and then freezing their bank accounts. I realized at the time that transactional freedom was important as freedom of expression that is protected by the First Amendment. Very powerful words right there. Agreed 100%. Now, fast forward more than 2 years later, U.S. policymakers realize there are 60 million Bitcoiners in the country. So they've been forced to change their tune on digital asset legislation, quoting RFK again. I think now it is past the point where it is inevitable. And now we need to move as a country that's able to get some control over Bitcoin as part of the reserve. In his view, a strategic Bitcoin reserve is the only way America can guarantee the future of the dollar as a permanent global reserve currency. To hear what RFK Jr. had to say about the Fed, monetary policy, and the role of the blockchain tech in preserving democracy, check out the interview by checking the show notes below the video in the description. And what are your thoughts on some of his promises he made if he is elected president, specifically these 4 executive orders I outlined for you, such as stockpiling 550 Bitcoin per day and building a reserve of 4 million bitties, basically hodling all the Bitcoin they confiscate and all the tax advantageous, things I shared with you. Let me know, family, and I'll read your comments out loud. Welcome, family, to the Q&A segment of the live show. I like the second one, JV. They're all lit. All four are good, and we want them. Hit the likes, you bunch of degens. There's Jay Beasy. Good to see you, brother. I channeled you earlier. I said if Jay Beasy was here, he'd say, hit the likes, you bunch of degens. You know what I mean? But yeah, we don't want the government to sell the Bitcoin in which they're holding right now, and that may be precisely what the plan is with the Dem administration. When RFK makes Bitcoin currency, all will follow. Global reserve, 1 million Bitcoin guaranteed. Well, you got a guarantee right there from Salwise. Bada boom, bada bing, 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 bada boom. RFK is not doing as bad as people think. Agree there, Devon. So here's the argument in the crypto sphere right now. Don't vote RFK. Yeah, he has the best policies for Bitcoin, but don't vote for him. It's a wasted vote against Trump. So let me know if that's true in your opinions or if that's just nonsense. I want to know your thoughts. But that's the biggest argument I hear. We agree. RFK, he gets Bitcoin the most. He's a maxi. He's like us. However, voting for him is a waste. Let me know your thoughts. Diana Jones says, excellent. Trump will appoint RFK or Saylor to advise Bitcoin. That is what a great leader does. Amen, Baccarat.